Tune to Guess Who's Coming to Kansas City, and we have a very special guest on the show with this afternoon, and he's up in Arizona, so we're going west, gentlemen, and his name is Bobby Benson. He is an accomplished person, I'm told. He runs X amount of company, let me get this right, but he's also a former Marine. That means he was part of the Navy, okay? Oh, Mr. Benson, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, what we want to do...
We were the Marine Corps, and, a part of the Navy, but we were the men's department.
in Arizona?
It is bright and sunny and hot.
Okay. And what part of Arizona are you actually in? Phoenix, or what part of Arizona are you in?
I'm a little northwest of Phoenix, which puts me in Peoria, Arizona.
Okay. Well, what I want to do, we got a very dynamic show, and we hope that the people are listening. But what we want to do, we want to take a look at Bobby Benson. It's my understanding you wear mutual hats, 4 or 5 at the same time. And when we spoke last, you said you work a minimum of 12 hours Monday through Friday, and I was lucky to catch you on the weekend. And today is the weekend. So tell us about Bobby, what you do, how you got into it, and we'll go from there.
All right. Well, a little bit about Bobby Benson. Well, the reason why I'm frequently so busy is I'm a nationally ranked volleyball coach for girls volleyball, ages 15 and 16. I am also the Vice President of Infrastructure, Architecture, and Engineering at Western Alliance Bank. So that is my field of control is to be responsible for all technology and information security for a $55 billion bank. Then in addition to that, I also am an accomplished musician. I've stepped away from being in the limelight, so now I'm behind the scenes with my company, Music and Mischief Media. And so I'm producing a lot of hip-hop, R&B music, and I work to help promote a lot of new artists that are moving from the unknown into notoriety. I'm not an actual record label in that sense. I'm just kind of someone who coaches and mentors new recording artists to get them ready for the industry so that they don't get out there and get taken advantage of. And then beyond that, I'm also a family man. I have a family of 6 that I take care of. I've got 2 boys, 2 girls, and a beautiful wife named Tiffany.
Okay, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting her as of yet. And I remember when you was in Kansas City for a UMA conference a few years ago, and we really enjoyed you, and I had permission to get back in touch with you by your mother. That you said you, Bobby Benson. Before we get him, your sister, whom I haven't had the pleasure to meet yet.
Yes. Berdina Snow. Formerly Miss Benson, but Berdina Snow.
Okay. I understand she went on a worldwide tour or something, or to the Mediterranean side of the world, the Atlantic side of the world.
Yeah, so my daughter, not my daughter, but my niece and my sister and some of the other women in the family just returned from a European vacation where they toured all of the, the old sources of knowledge and scholarship, where all the studying got done. Of course, they had some of the landmarks, some of the tourist traps, but they were really out there just doing an educational journey, figuring out, how did the base of language in Latin countries begin, and things of that nature. It was a really good thing for them.
Okay, and they all enjoyed themselves. I'm hoping, or did they?
Came
or
back
did they not?
smiles and sunshine.
Okay. Well, the real Bobby Benson, I've heard so much about you, and we'll have the pleasure of meeting. And when you was in Kansas City a few years ago, and I know we extended that invitation for you to be back here in September, but just tell us about the different things that I wanted to say look at Bobby Benson, and maybe you have covered a lot of the areas. And where did you get your academia from?
Oh, okay. So I have a bachelor's degree in information systems technology with a minor in e-business. And then I moved on to Grand Canyon University here in Phoenix, D1 College. That's where I got my master's degree in business administration with a focus on financial systems, basically a master's degree in banking. My education also extends to a myriad of other things. When I was in the Marine Corps, I learned to micro-miniature solder to NASA specs. Of course, I went through the basic computer electronics courses and all those different things that really built my basis for what I use in my day-to-day business as well as technology life.
Speaking of that, and I know your culture and things like that, are there many other people of color in that same area you in? But you said you got your doctorate, you got your master's. When did you have time to have all this family?
Well, spending time with the family is definitely. After today's interview, I'll be spending some time. Today is Miss Barbara Jean, my mother's birthday, so I'll be spending time with Mom. Yep, it's her birthday.
Did you try to get her connect us with us?
She is on her way over to my home, so she should be pulling up here within the next 30 minutes or so.
Okay, well, I can say officially happy birthday to her. Okay?
I'll certainly make sure that I can make that happen.
Okay, well, I have some other people. We are on the internet. We're on YouTube or Facebook, Apple TV, Smart, and iPhone, and we're on 5 podcasters that cover 5 countries in the world, basically on the Central America and over in Europe. And if I can, our other hosts, and I give them opportunity to be in the pleasure of your company now, they might want to ask you something.
Absolutely.
Howard? Scott?
I've been having the pleasure of listening so far, and he sounds like a fascinating gentleman. Or you sound like a fascinating gentleman. Excuse me, I'm behind the board here, so I have no questions as of now yet.
Scott is our engineer.
Okay, so you got a sound engineer there working the boards for you.
Right. Is he tuned in? Does he wake up yet?
No. I've had you reading it for a while. I just want to make sure I just sit back and listen to the program. My name is Howard Post. I'm here in Missouri by Commerce, and I also run the producer of the program. And Bobby, just to listen to you, what you talk, okay, about the place, the thing that you're doing, especially being a family man, okay, and in Arizona, I have a business partner. I'm living not just out in Arizona also, but I know it's a beautiful place. The weather's always nice and hot, and that you got a lot going on out there.
Yeah, we certainly do. Arizona is a beautiful place. Right about now is the hot season, where most folks don't want to come at this time, and we always say that this is the weather that we use to run off people who ain't built right. But so right now we're probably sitting at about 111. Get up to 122, 123 when it gets super hot. But that's what air conditioners and staying inside are for. You just make sure you drink a lot of water. But when you look out in your backyard, everything is green and beautiful because we just do a lot of water discipline, and we water our grass at the right times of the day, and we grow the right trees. Right now I'm sitting out on my back patio during this interview, and I'm looking out at all the different fruit trees and berry bushes and all that other stuff, because I am, my wife likes to tease me. She says I live my life like I'm a doomsday prepper. But, I just make sure that I've got all of my food that if I really needed to, I could feed my family right out of my backyard. So, I've got a garden that's going with all my fresh veggies. I've got fruit trees that are planted so that every season of the year there's a different tree coming into ripeness. So we've always got something that we can eat.
Okay, that's a mouthful. Recently, what about the Supreme Court justice? The last 2 things they've been dealing with. The Second Amendment and non-abortion, if I'm saying that right. I don't know if Arizona fall on that or not, but they are really the Republicans are really trying to close down everything to their liking.
Well, Governor Doug Ducey out here has ruled that Arizona will follow what the Supreme Court just made their decision on. So they have overturned Roe versus Wade out here, and that means that abortions after 13 and a half weeks are now illegal. There was a large protest downtown last night, and they actually had to evacuate the Arizona State Senate, not because there was an attack so much inside of the facility, but they deployed a lot of tear gas and other countermeasures out there on the lawn for the folks that were protesting, and a lot of that got inside of the building, so they evacuated all the senators and the admin staff and things of that nature. So it was quite the spectacle here in Arizona last night.
Okay, Scott?
let me ask you a question, okay? Being one of those persons that has 3 daughters, married, and sister, and not women in my family, and I kind of felt, that a Supreme Court ruling was kind of really, in one way, they gave men more rights, okay? But men needed more guns on the street, because here in Missouri, it's like the Wild Wild West already. And we have crime like crazy, and left and right, I should say. And then now the Supreme Court is now, and the women cannot, have a voice to do what they want to do with their bodies. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I tell you what, out here in Arizona and being a former Marine, I'm against the norm. I'm going to be a Second Amendment advocate. I'm one of those pro-gun guys, but then, my spin on that is I'm highly trained. And it's not something where I just got a gun and I run around with it and, play Rambo. I actually train every week with my team, some of my former Marines and some of my friends that are out here. We still, do all the basics. We sweep and clear buildings. We practice what'll happen if a convenience store is being robbed and you walked in on it, if you're at a gas pump. So we're very, very skilled with our weapons. But I've seen people who aren't, and it's terrifying to see that some people have these weapons. But on the inverse, again, I'm saying I don't want them to take away my right to defend myself and my family because there's a couple of idiots out there doing dumb things with guns. That's just like McDonald's saying that they're not going to sell a supersized fry because somebody can't stop themselves from eating too much. So that's kind of where I'm at. But then, when we swing around to the other side, when we're speaking about the abortion...
Now, before you get to that, what about your Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas? What he have to say about the Second Amendment?
Well,
Unfortunately, he's from the Boot Hills of Missouri now. Go ahead.
The Boot Hills of Missouri. Well, I'll tell you this. Well, I don't know exactly what he said because I did not actually catch that portion of all I did was hear the ruling and the finding from the court. Can you refresh my memory on what he said exactly?
Howard?
Oh, Roger, I think what MC is referring to is, before you cut you off, okay, about the main issue they talk about, that Clarence Thomas made a statement in that what just took place with Roe versus Wade, that there's maybe a later attack.
No, I'm talking about the Second Amendment first.
Right, but I'm not familiar with Roger what he said about the Second Amendment.
Okay.
And I haven't heard any comments about what he said about the Second Amendment. Yes, I'm listening to that myself when you said that what Bob was talking about.
Bobby, can you help us on that?
I don't know that Clarence Thomas made any comments about the Second Amendment, but as far as my comments on the Second Amendment, I'm pro-Second Amendment.
What does that mean? I know it's my understanding that back in 1790, because the landowners needed protection, that's when that went into became law. That's my understanding.
Well, yeah, and so the Second Amendment, people confuse the right and keep to bear arms with, hey, I'm protecting myself from wild animals and things like that, or even from robbers and burglars. That's not what the Second Amendment is about. The Second Amendment was written because the founding fathers of the country had dealt with England when England first disarmed them and then started doing, tyrannical things to them. So they put it in the Constitution to say, at no point shall that right ever be infringed again. So if you got a government that has all the guns and the people have none, it's very easy for the government to do things. Now, I know on the inverse that you're not going to stand up to a military regiment with an AR-15 or, with a rifle. You're not. But being a Marine who served in combat, I can tell you that there is nothing more deadly than having to fight an insurgency that has, small arms that are popping out of windows everywhere you go. So you may not win that war, but what it would become would be a war of attrition. So if our government ever truly turned against us, and right now we got both sides, Republicans and Democrats, doing some of the dumbest things I've ever seen on the planet, if they truly turned against us, if we had surrendered all of our weapons, we would have no recourse. And that's what they're trying to avoid. It would be very easy to enslave any person or people when they have no way to defend themselves.
I remember when I worked for an organization called the Kansas City Plan to place minority and women to the skilled crafts of construction. I used to go down to these little small town, and they had the militia training already in those areas for years before everybody went public on this, that, and another. They've been, like you said, they have trained themselves. So if somebody else had an uprising, they could cut them off, like the Prince Albert report. I don't know how you remember that saying, where they would cut off all the freeways and things so they could stop any type of, what would you say, penetration by the people. Maybe that's a good word to use.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that makes America, everybody says, oh, America is a powerhouse, and they're worried about us because of our military might. But during the war games that we played in the Marine Corps, one of the things that we very frequently said and we depended upon was that if there was ever an invasion on American soil, that they would not only have to fight our military, but they would have to fight our people, because on average in America, there is 2 guns for every human. Period. I don't care if she's 2 years old or a 2-year-old baby, or it's a 97-year-old grandfather. There's 2 guns for every person in the continental U.S. Now, of course, there are some people that have 100 guns, and there's some people who have none, but the average is 2 guns per person. And when you've got that kind of armament, anybody trying to invade this country knows that it would not be a cakewalk for that very reason.
I like you, sir. This is Scott Owen, by the way.
I appreciate you.
Well, you have the other young man. He's a veteran too. I don't know what military he's in, but I'm Navy myself. But on the same token, he goes to a lot of the veteran seminars and workshops. That's what they take pride, the handicap and what have you. So, what branch of service were you in, Scott?
I was Air Force 20 years. And we still loved our naval brothers.
Another bus driver, I'm telling you.
No. We got the best quarters and everything, and food.
Well, yeah, that's right. We call you guys Zoomies. I have to say, though, as much trash as I like to talk about you Zoomies, if it weren't for the Zoomies, I wouldn't be on this phone today, because they had us, we had a couple of insurgents that had us pinned down, and we weren't going nowhere except home in a box.
There you go.
I heard some of those Air Force F-14s come in.
Mm-hmm.
They came in low and fast, and they had already dropped their munitions, but they didn't have. But they were trying to provide us air cover, just trying to scare the guys off because they didn't have any bombs to drop.
Absolutely.
So they came in nice and low, fired their cannons at them, and but it's really hard to hit something on the ground with the cannon. But this pilot, this crazy Air Force pilot, flew in. He must have been no more than 100 feet off the ground in an F-14 doing 700 miles an hour. Got right over the top of that enemy, pulled up on his throttle, and flew straight up. And all that jet wash just cooked all those guys on the ground, less than 200 yards away from us. And then he shot straight up into the sky, and that was enough to break their resolve. And that's what allowed us to get out of that area.
So
speaking of Arizona, when I went through there on this, what you call the type of trains or whatever they call that area where they said that we had aliens there, that the Air Force trapped them in a mountain or some secret place. Have you heard anything about that? They said the Air Force is the one that normally...
That's in New Mexico.
Oh, in New Mexico? Okay. I went through there too, but they were saying that the Air Force was the one that actually captured these so-called, outer space people.
The Guardians.
I actually hadn't heard about that, but it makes sense because the Air Force is the scientific branch. They'd be the ones that would handle that kind of stuff.
Well, they call the Space Force people Guardians nowadays.
I have not had any run-ins or any experience with the Space Force yet, so that's all new to me. Anything I told you would just be opinion and mystery.
Well, I think they just had their first graduating boot camp this last week.
Oh, okay.
If you just tune in, you listen to a very special broadcast, and we're talking to Mr. Bobby Benson in Arizona. and we got Mr. Scott Owens and Mr. R. Folks. They're in St. Louis, and I'm in the largest city in Missouri, Kansas City. And the show is Guess Who's Coming to Kansas City. But we have some special guests on here, and I'm hoping for the arrival of Mr. Benson's mother so I can say happy birthday to her. And I know that she'll come in, and she is a nurse practitioner to the extreme. She knows everything. And I remember her, yeah, well, let's say we got a little blood action because we are related, okay? But this is an eye-opening thing. Now, I know how you're not saying anything because you doesn't have that military training or anything like that, or been in the military. But we welcome your comments.
No. I was just you cut Bobby off, okay? But I want to hear more about this action with the Air Force, because that was a heck of a experience you just described, Bobby, for the Air Force. And that's something I never heard of before, how that could take place. And really, I find stuff like that. And being an airplane enthusiast, okay, especially the Air Force and shit like that, but that was, and I just heard different things what the plane can do. But that just was very, very enlightening on my end.
Okay, I yield to you to go ahead and continue, Mr. Benson.
Oh, well, I'm pretty good on that. Well, Miss Barbara Jean Benson just walked into my house, and I've got a house full of folks that are just running their mouth a whole lot. So what I'm going to do is let them settle down a bit before I try to put on this radio interview, because they talking more than would make sense for us right now.
So at least you got 3 or 4 listeners, huh? Okay, Scott, he's kind of defending you. We used to call people in the Air Force because they dress like bus drivers. That's why we call them.
We had
bus
the
drivers,
hat.
okay?
Yeah, when I first got out of basic training, I was called a bus driver by somebody in Chicago. So yeah, I know. But no, despite public opinion, we did not take our mothers to basic training. We don't get nap time, stuff like, things like that.
Well, hold on now. Let's not go getting too carried away, because I'm pretty sure that I remember some of these Air Force guys taking naps in the middle of combat.
What was your rank in the Air Force, Mr. Owens?
I was an E6 at the end. Let's see here. Technical sergeant. So I was just a doobie.
Okay. Well, that's good. This is a special broadcast that was brought for your listening pleasure, and we want the whole world to tune in. Someone saying something now?
Yeah, Bob, but what was your rank in the Marines?
I got out of the Marine Corps as an E4 corporal.
Okay, now let me ask you a question. Exactly where were you involved at you experienced your heroic, a contribution? Where were you located when that took place?
I actually can't tell you. And I know how silly that sounds, but I actually can't.
He'd have to kill you, Ira.
No, I want to live. Not just on that fear expansion, okay? Especially being enthusiastic, okay, about the power of the airplanes, and what the F-15 can do and what they cannot do, which is very little. But to hear that described, okay, about that being an extra weapon that they had built in, which was part of this. Just them, taking all close to the ground and going up or something. Because I live right here by the airport here in St. Louis, Missouri. And I'm watching them, some of them take off. They when they actually go and things like that, And
yep.
They see them just, take off. And also you look up, they pull the stick back, and all of a sudden they gone.
Yep. I mean, whoever that pilot was, I never got a chance to meet him and shake his or her hand. But I tell you what, that was some first-rate flying. Yes. Without question.
He sure knew how to use his tools, didn't he?
Yep.
And they may want to call him, the bus driver or whatever, but right there, he's right driving that bus.
Yeah, I love that bus, boy. Let me get on that bus any day of the week.
Well, you're welcome, sailor. Or Marine, I'm sorry.
Hey, what they tell us, Scott, all the time, thank you for your service.
Well, you're worth it. I appreciate it.
Has Mother Benson entered the room yet?
She is in the house right now. They are still in their gibber-jabbers. Let me see if I can't calm the world down in there.
Yeah, just snatch her, and I'll take the blame.
All right. Use my military presence to quiet all these kids. Stand by.
Okay. I always see how much you have. You can learn when you're talking to a special Sagittarian on this end. Okay.
I'm a learner. You know, I'm a lifelong learner. You know.
Okay. Hello.
Yes. Is this the Barbara Jean Benson?
Yes.
Happy birthday, honey. This is MC.
How you doing, baby boy?
All right. And your son, the one you've been so braggadocious about, he's setting the world on fire.
Oh, wow. That's so good to hear that we got family still adding. Wow, that's so good.
A gentleman, Miss Barbara Jean Benson, is Bobby's mother. And she's been around. She's a Richardson hour.
This is Bernice's daughter.
So, but all of them will be coming to Kansas City in September. But we got Bobby on the line with us, and I understand he got a house full. I understand he don't have to go to the grocery store or to the fruit market. It's right there, like on his patio.
Right.
What are you? How are you doing? You doing okay? Barbara Jean. I know this is your birthday, okay? And I'm very happy that you are my elder, and I appreciate you and respect you.
Well, good. The only person older than me is Dorothy Grace.
Yes. Yes, and I have to give you her number. Hopefully she'll accompany us in Kansas City, but just give our is from around Louisiana. Give about the Richardson as you know it in Richardson, Texas, and Arkansas, and what have you.
Richardson, Texas, and White, Texas. Because the Whites was mother's side of the family. My mother's mother, they were the Whites down out of Texas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, happy birthday to you. My name is Ira Folks, and I'm happy if you have many more birthdays. Exactly where in Texas is White Texas located at?
Wow.
Well, some say Bonham, Texas, near Arlington, outside of Dallas.
Uh-huh. Yeah, Richardson, Texas, and White, Texas are all family, started out as family farms, and then the towns grew up around them.
Wow, congratulations on having your own town.
Wow. That was because the families were so large they had to have their own space.
Well, I don't know if I consider they have their own town, okay? Now, you just gave MC some bragging rights for a long time. We never heard into that one.
Right.
Well, she used to walk me across the street when I was little.
Well, that's for sure.
And we have Miss Benson. Do you feel okay to tell us how old you are? You want me to tell them?
So what, hon?
You want me to give your age, or you gonna tell them?
I don't care.
Okay.
It doesn't matter to me.
So how old are you, Miss Benson?
God's been good enough to let me have 86 years, so I have no complaints.
Okay.
There you go.
Last time, I don't know, we won't ask him, but we had a young lady's birthday we celebrated last month, and then Mr. Scott Owen was trying to sing Happy Birthday. Go ahead and do your rendition, Scott, to Miss Barbara Jean Benson.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Miss Benson. Happy birthday to you. There you go.
I think he's been practicing since he's attempted that song about a month ago.
Wow.
So I'm glad that you was on your way and was able to talk to you. I've been thinking about you a great deal with us. That's common among us, Richardson descendants, what have you.
Right.
You know, a lot of people was questioning. They never heard of Ketcher, Arkansas.
Well, that's because that was not something that was talked about very much among the family, except the older ones that had to run that night.
I was telling him my father, who was the seventh child of the Richardsons, 14, that he was born in Ketcher, June the 3rd, 1900. Right. Had he lived, he'd been 122 this year.
Right. Because Mama would have been 105 or 106, I think.
Okay.
Her in Geneva.
Yeah. We got quite a clan, you gentlemen, all over the country.
Right.
Well,
Mother was the oldest surviving girl in the family.
Okay.
Mhm.
I hope we don't leave the rest of y'all speechless, but you can join us in our conversation.
This is a family conversation, okay? I'm just excited to hear you talking to someone, you know, that knows your history. And that you guys grew up together, you know, and had a great family. And then a lot of you talked about right now about your family. I mean, that's another part, you know, people talking about, you know, about they had to, you know, they leave there running and stuff. It's a story that never was told before.
There's a lot of us. Yeah.
And now what did you do?
Because there was 21 or 22 in Mama's family alone, you know, Ernest and them. Yeah.
21, that's a lot of kids.
And the other family that is married is the Coggs, both our and
They're
Scott.
also a big family. And these were 2 and 3 generations of big families. The Coggs, the Richardsons, and
The Fergusons and
the Fergusons.
See how well us young people remember that stuff.
Wow. Yeah, because Mama only had 2 kids and adopted one, but everybody else had pretty big families. When it came down to the Mama's sisters and brothers, most of them did not have big families except Uncle Nathaniel.
Right. Now, who was your mother's mother?
Her name was Effie. She was Effie White.
Okay. Bobby, we want to squeeze you out because we want your valuable information.
Yeah. She was Grandpa Ernest's first wife.
Okay. And that was your mother's mother? Okay.
Yeah.
Bobby, it's okay. Your mother will let you talk. She's not going to smack you in the middle of next week. Go ahead and talk.
Wow.
Well, let me ask you a question. How many children did you have?
I only had 2.
Okay.
And let's see, my brother had 2 or 3, and that's kind of basically the size of Mother's family. Mama didn't have a lot of kids, and her kids didn't have a lot of kids.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that she had you, and I'm glad to have you reaching another birthday. That was a very exciting thing to be a part of, and I appreciate it.
No kidding.
Yes, it is. Yes, ma'am. And I'm happy to say it. Just to be able to speak to you, it's an honor and a pleasure.
Yes. God has been real good.
Well,
really good.
Talking to your son Bobby, okay, seeing what the thing that he's doing now, that's very commendable to, you know, you raised a great man there.
Right. He's doing quite well, and my daughter just got back in from being in Europe.
Okay.
Yeah, she was all over Europe for the month of June and in May.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now that is qualification.
Yes. Yeah, she's all over the place too.
Well, the good part about this, they're traveling, they're learning new things and meeting new people.
Yes. Yes.
So, what are you doing for your birthday, Mrs. Benson?
Oh, Mr. Benson's got things all over here. It's going to turn real ethnic with all the food that they got over here.
They don't eat chitlins in Arizona, do they?
Huh?
They don't eat chitlins in Arizona, do they?
Don't eat chitlins.
Yeah.
No. But you know, Mama didn't eat chitlins.
I didn't know that. I know over to Aunt Moselle, they had everything over there.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. But ain't Moselle and ain't Mary and ain't Elizabeth and ain't Irene, they were all cooks from their hearts.
You're right.
Yes.
Fantastic meal, and I know our and his background. Did you say you escaped from a plantation or grew up on a plantation?
Well, I grew up, I didn't escape, okay? My family just drove across the bridge, we weren't,
Yes.
Nothing like, matter of fact, my family dates back into to the 12th century, that was Scottish back, heritage.
Right.
We got
but you'll see, Mama was of the generation where they had to run in and grab the kids, wrap them in blankets, and put them in the buckboard and get across the bridge.
I haven't heard the word buckboard in a long time. Only in movies. I wasn't watching a movie today. Okay, they had on MTV. While watching Cowboys on Saturdays, they had a buckboard being used.
Right.
It was like a core in those days.
Right.
Well, Miss Barbara Jean, happy birthday again. We don't want to take away from
Thank you.
The other people there.
Have my son back. Yeah.
Okay. Bobby?
Yes.
We gave you a little break, didn't we?
Yes.
So did you have a chance to research things that you want to tell us?
You're just pumping up my ego. You just want me to sit here and talk about myself endlessly. That sounds like a good plan.
Okay. Go, because this is a special show, and I know you'll be coming in. You're going to talk about the different things. So briefly, how does Arizona different from other states? We're talking about Arkansas. We're talking about Mississippi. We're talking about all the South and things like that. But the same thing, you have those same type of problems and discrimination in Arizona.
Yeah, no matter where you go, you're going to have those type of problems. But Arizona's got a rich history focused around African Americans, and we're the 48th state to join the union. But when I think about that, what's most important is that the things that were built and the infrastructure that's built in Arizona was actually built by African Americans, and they built a lot of the cities and the towns that later became the settlement. They built the settlements that later became the cities and towns that they eventually became unwelcome in. But like in, I think it was 1866, the very first all African American regiment of soldiers was formed here in Arizona. And those are the ones who later became known as the Buffalo Soldiers, and then they spread back toward the east and into California. But the Buffalo Soldier originated here in Arizona.
Bob, it's interesting to find out about that, because I kind of follow the Buffalo Soldiers, some people you've done. Matter of fact, on my radio show, I have said them as people that from that regiment, from the I won't call it the academy, but they talk about what Colin Powell did, okay, to establish that out there. But in Kansas, I make them like a place where they could tell their story. And the Buffalo Soldiers, it became one of the most outstanding, black stories. I said black parts of history that built a lot of our country.
Absolutely. The African American male back in the Wild West, we were the ones that did most of the settling and went into most of the dangerous areas because of the fact, we had what at the time was considered an unusual strength and an unusual reflex response, which meant that we were faster, stronger, and more alert than most other settlers. So what would happen is they would allow us to come out and take come in and find those resources like water, the precious metals in the ground, and all that other stuff. And then as we began to have success in an area, then they would move in and take it over and then kick us out. So that's why we were always on the front edge of the frontier, is where former slaves and and freemen that had always been free just always tried to stay ahead of civilization, not because they didn't like civilization, but because civilization didn't really want them there.
Yeah, they were what we call scouts in those days. They would always go out and scout out the next venture where they were about to go, and bring back and report if there was water, if it was a good place to go or not to go, so to speak.
Exactly.
Okay. I know y'all got a lot of stuff you want to share with us. Now is the time. We got maybe approximately 10 and a half more minutes, so we might well take advantage of this where we get this quest for knowledge and whatever. We have our superstars on as guests today, so I'm learning, I'm listening and learning.
Well, MC, my part of the show is just we can produce and connect people together here, and I can say exactly as I find this interesting, okay, to find out more and more about Arizona being, I think what you said, the 4-day states to join the union, the 47 states to join the union, that I know that a lot of their housing and stuff out there, they had to learn how to survive, in a whole, and when they went west, they found out, okay, there was a whole new environment that they were not used to, the heat that they encountered in going west.
Well, that's funny that you mentioned that. One of the things about coming out west that is not very frequently talked about, but it's a known fact out here, is that a lot of the escaped slaves and others, everybody always thinks about how we all ran to the north. What they meant is that a lot of us ran west because the arid climate that's out in the western United States is very similar to that is closer to the equator. Americans that came out this way, they found areas and homes that they were familiar with, the landscape and how to survive and how to find water and where to find food. It was very familiar to them as opposed to where they had been on the East Coast, which was very moist and humid and unfamiliar to them.
So, Bobby, when you think about that, Bobby, most of the soldiers, they normally had uniforms on. They was riding with all the hardware and all the things like that. Okay, it made it kind of impossible to survive in the heat. And so the average black person, free-man, as we would call them, they could travel light, to say the least, okay, because they had what on their bodies, all they needed.
Exactly the way it went too.
Yeah, I know.
So, and they would give us a mule, and they would give us, they wouldn't even give us a rifle. They'd give us a pistol. Get a pistol with 6 shots in it, and send them out on a 14 to 30-day trek to go out and report and map. But one of the things that happened as a result, Americans became very, very good cartographers. They understood how to map and how to, draw the topography of the land and how to identify resources. So what you'll see out here in Arizona specifically, we have a city that's known as Young Arizona. Okay, it's way up in our mountain area, but it's in a valley. So in order to get there, you climb up to about 6,000 feet in elevation, and then we drop back down to about 5,000, below 5,000. That entire valley is the largest water aquifer in the state of Arizona. Well, when they brought all of those African-American scouts and things through, what happened is a couple of them got together and said, we're not going to tell anybody about this area. And they sent them all down into the Valley of Phoenix. It was much harder to get things done, and they sent everybody down and around. So if you go to Young Arizona, to this day, it still only has a population of about 663 people. They live a very fundamentalist lifestyle to where, everybody's growing their own food, they're raising animals. There's one high school, one elementary school. Very small townish, but it has a huge African-American population. And what happens is a lot of the kids grow up and there's nothing for them to do, so they get up and they leave, and they go off to school and they don't come back. But when I discovered that place, it's one of the best places to grow grapes and other produce. So I went up there after I got out of the Marine Corps, and I had some spare money from bonuses and things that they had given me. We bought 40 acres out there. So I've got a 40-acre ranch/farm up in Young, Arizona. And while I was out there doing all this stuff, I was just talking to a lot of the community, and I've got a unique benefit that they don't have. I'm working and living in the city, making city wages, but I own property up there. So what I'm able to do is I can take a sum of my paycheck, take it up there, and build out infrastructure, and build out a farm, and really be able to pour money into that economy up there. And as a result, what we did was we got a grant through the federal government, and the federal government came in and said, well, since you're going to be out there and putting these resources in so that the high school students and the elementary school students can have what they call the 4-H club, which they learn how to take care of animals and all that other stuff. Because I did that, they gave me a free Mahindra tractor, which was almost $400,000. And so the Mahindra tractor, it's what allows them to till the ground and to just prepare large acreages of farmland for food. Okay. Well, they gave us one of those for free as a grant. And the teachers at the school out there wrote all the proposals and everything. But I was able to really benefit from it because the grant came in my name. I became the owner of a $400,000 piece of equipment, free and clear, and I didn't put any money into it. And what happened is those high school kids, they're out there working my 40 acres, growing all of the fresh produce for the city of Young. So all that stuff that they normally have to pay extra money because nobody wants to drive a Mack truck up those steep mountain hills to get into this little area to deliver these small portions. But because they were able to get these large, this 40 acres that I purchased, and the kids are up there growing all of their own food, they produce lettuce, cucumbers, tomatoes, cilantro, squash, cantaloupe, watermelon, just depending upon the season. And, of course, we've got about 200 chickens and 30 head of cattle all on this land out here. And so they've learned how to care for animals, butcher animals, how to do soil preparation. And each year, the government is giving me grant money, and I pour it in these communities. And anything that the families up there don't eat, we take it, we sell it. I take my percentage of the profits, and then I take the rest of the profits and we put it back into the city, building out new infrastructure. And when I first got out there, Young, Arizona had a population of 342. We're now up to 687. So the city is growing from just somebody being able to pour money into their infrastructure. And that makes me very proud to be able to say that I did that.
Well, you should be proud because really, you kind of actually showed several new generations.
That's my hope, and so what I'm doing is because of all of my background in technology, there's a lot of kids that leave Young, Arizona because there's either no jobs or, there's nothing to do up there. So, but one of the great things that they have is the federal government. They brought in these high-speed telephony lines because it's cheaper for them to put in fiber than it was for them to run copper. So they put in the fiber up there, and they've got blazing. So me and two of my friends down here in Phoenix, we go up to Young once every 2 weekends, and we spend that time up there, and we are educating the youth up there on how to be A+ certified computer repair technicians, Network Plus, and the Security Plus certification. And my plan is to take an old building that they have up there, renovate it, and turn it into a call center. And then we'll be able to work with some of the larger call centers like the Assurions and those other ones, and they'll be able to route some of their overflow calls to that area. I'll be able to pay those kids there the kind of wages that they would have been making working in the city, but living in Young, which is going to raise their ability to buy new things. It means that people are going to be able to afford new cars. They're going to be able to do nice renovations on their homes and all of that stuff in that area, just because now we're bringing that money in and we're bringing technology into that small city.
Bobby, one of the things important in Arizona, using technology also And I would like to have you collaborate, because one thing we're building here in Missouri is a high-tech solution where that you be building there for the people in a place called Haytown, Missouri. And you've done something similar that we're doing here, so we drop it. To collaborate, because we have the same idea, is to train those people from that village there, of that town there, how to go out, and they can also work from home as a call center, as you said, and live where they live at and work where they work at, in their home, right at home.
Absolutely. And there's nothing better than increasing the population of African American youth who are technologically savvy tech jobs. We have kids, we have some young men coming over from India and going to our colleges and getting these degrees and then coming in and doing these jobs. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do the same thing with our African American youth.
Mr. Richardson, I hate to say this, but we're about 4 minutes from 6.
Yeah, well, we can get ready to wrap this show up. Very important show, and I'll call you back. I need some more information from you, Mr. Benson. But on the same token, he said 4 minutes. That's our timekeeper, and he's in the Air Force, so he might swoop one of them planes down to stop us.
We are the tech guys.
We all need those we all need a tech guys, otherwise, because people get carried away with time, And matter of fact, Bobby, I'm excited to have met you. It won't be the last time that we communicate with each other, I can assure you.
I'm very excited. If I can come out there and help y'all do some of the things that we're doing out here in Phoenix and up in Young, Arizona, I would love to be able to say that I helped you that in multiple states.
Well, right now, the idea that we're doing in Haytown, Missouri is just kind of is a experimental. It's a experiment in fact, technology in the rural communities, okay, and that's something that is called a rural community. And you actually got it on the ground and working. So every time we make the wheel, I can follow your lead. I'm not proud. I have no problem being a good follower also.
Excellent. Let's do something together.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that about does it. If you want somebody to get in touch with you, how might they do so, Mr. Benson?
So I am incredibly hard to get a hold of.
I know.
So, you can reach me. I'm willing to give my cell phone number. My cell phone number is 623-703-9611. My recommendation is that you text me and say who you are and what you want to speak to me about before you call me. Because, when somebody tells you that they ain't got time to talk to you, it's probably because they did triage and said, I don't know who you are and I don't know why I should talk to you, so I'm going to go do something I know I need to do. And that's exactly what I do. But if you text me and tell me, hey, this is who I am, this is what I want to talk to you about, I will make time in my day to get things done. So you call me on my phone, text me first, and then call me. My email address is dbenson@westernalliancebank.com. That's my business email, and I'm giving that to y'all because this is business. So y'all reach out to me, and I'll see that email come in.
Well, I don't have a pen and paper, but I'm going to call you back in a half hour, and hopefully I give you the right verbiage. You'll pick up the phone.
I know you're calling in. See, I'm prepared.
Well, and Scott, do you have any closing words, Air Force guy?
Ferguson, USA, HotTalkRadio.com. You can reach me there.
And, Aura, this show, can you email that to Bobby?
No, but I can text it to him.
Oh, okay. Would you, is that okay with you, Mr. Benson?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, this has been a great show, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Bobby, I'll see you in September, but I'll call you back not too long so we can get some other things going. But I want to thank everybody for listening in, and like Arizona, I don't know how they stand that humidity out there, but I guess it's okay.
There ain't no humidity out here. It takes off in the morning.
Okay. That's right. You're 2 hours behind us, aren't you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's the good part about it.
Okay. So that Mr. Scott Owens don't jump us, and we're going over time. Thanks to everybody who tuned in and listened to the show. And remember to go to Ferguson, USA, HotTalkRadio.com and you can hear more of this no-nonsense type of verbiage. Thank you very much.
Life is good and peace be safe.
Bye-bye.